Alright, we back. Ignore the fact that I'm in the laundry room. This is a little mini series for those of you who again want to come in and end up switching your major. So there will be a series of like 3 videos for these. So stay tuned for how that'll go.
Basically, what to do if you decide to switch. You come to
Peace.
Scad, you get settled, you decide, you know what, this actually isn't for me. Um, my roommate again is going to help me film this video because we have both officially switched our majors, and we both went through different experiences switching it. Whereas I switched it over the break, which is the preferred way to do it, whereas he switched it in the middle of.
Alright, we're back. This is Scad Brain. It is. I already said the date. You saw the intro. You already know what you're here for. You know what video you're here for. This is my roommate Ethan. This is the first time y'all are seeing him. Hopefully not the last, but he likes to sleep most of the time, so maybe maybe one of the last. But yeah, you want to start? Sure. Okay, so with your process. So I started out doing 2D animation for Scad. That was going to be my major. And I stuck with it for 3 major classes, and in time that would be around like a year and a quarter. So some tips I have for incoming animation students is definitely be prepared to draw a lot. You are going to be drawing a lot. First class is Anim 190, and you have a sketchbook that is I want to say like around 160 pages, and you're filling out every single page. They split it into quarters. For like every 2 weeks, you're supposed to have like 20 pages done, something like that. If the math doesn't add up, it's because I got it wrong. But but I know it's big numbers basically. So just be prepared. Do not fall behind. I made that mistake. Definitely stay on top of it. Don't just think that
Don't get comfortable.
Yeah, don't get comfortable. Do it as soon as you can. And one of the things about Anim 190, it's changed in recent history, like probably in the last year or two, I think. Mm-hmm. Because if you talk to older SCAD students, they're going to tell you something completely different. And that's no longer the case. Now, Anim 190 is just a purely 3D class. You are going to be learning 3D animation. It starts with modeling the character that you're going to work with. And it's nothing to, don't let that scare you off. If you are in 3D, though, you will have more fun. I'm just going to be honest. So you model a character, it's like a sock puppet. It's that simple. It's not anything crazy. And then next you move on to rigging. And you spend a lot of time on rigging. Rightfully so, because it's an annoying process. And then you move on to actually animating. But the actual animating process is probably like the last 2 weeks of class. I'm gonna be real. And that's pretty much the entire class. The only 2D forms of animation you'll be doing is the sketchbook. And the sketchbook, you're not gonna have fun with it. Especially it depends on the teacher. My professor did me no favors in the sketchbook department because for the thing about animation, how an animation sketchbook should look is rough sketches. Basically, you were trying to nail down ideas for characters, environments, props, stuff like that. So it's going to be rough. Studying perspective kind of stuff. Anatomy. All you should be doing is you look at a person, do a few rough lines. If it looks like a person, good. You did the job correctly. And you'll only get better and faster at it. However, my professor was a 3D only professor. He didn't do 2D animation, like at all. So his form of sketchbook was highly detailed and rendered sketches. So, for my class, I was drawing fully detailed, like, animals,
people and like shading and everything, and then I turn over to my other friend and they're getting away with just drawing like
Stick figures.
yeah, practically. So really depends on the professor. I would look into reviews for sure.
Wait, my professor is your best friend.
Yes.
I've said it before. I will say it again.
For sure. So definitely check that out. So that's pretty much. Oh, another thing you should know is that at the end, close to the end of Anim 190, they will have like a conference, and you'll speak to the higher up animation professors, and they're gonna watch your animated clip, and they're gonna go like, huh. They'll basically decide for you whether you go 2D or 3D. Let me be clear right now. They will always tell you 3D. They will never tell you to do 2D. Unless you are incredible. There was only one case I've ever heard where they told you to do 2D. And it was because the person who animated the 3D was so bad at animating in 3D. They're like, okay, you can't do 3D. So it's very rare. Don't let that get you down necessarily. I don't want to like crap on people's dreams, but just fair warning. Don't go in there thinking that they're going to give you any advice on 2D or tell you to do 2D because they won't. Do you have any questions before I move on to the next step, I guess? No. Okay. Next class you should take. Which one did I take? Okay. Next one you should take, if you're doing 2D. I can only speak mostly for 2D. You do, I don't really know the number. I'm going to get it wrong. So it's like, it's your first true 2D animation class. It's pretty much the only class you can do next if you're doing 2D animation. So you won't get confused and take the wrong class if you're taking 2D. This one is way different than Anim 190. You will be doing purely 2D. This will be your first big step into the 2D world. Sketchbook will still be a thing at this point. So stay on touch with your sketchbook. One thing I will warn you is that my professor said something along the lines of, 120 pages by like the end of the quarter. There were no check-ins this time. In Anim 190, you're going to have check-ins every 2 weeks. So you have to stay on top of it. This one is so easy to fall behind because they don't do check-ins. They trust you to get it done by the end of the quarter. And you'll think, 120 pages, that's less than before. It was like 160. I've got some news for you. It's 120 pages front and back. My professor did not make that clear to us. So many of us ended up being very far behind. So I'm going to save you guys right now. Front and back.
You'll get so much more sleep.
Yes, exactly. I was a wreck at the end of the quarter trying to catch up. I was like
3 days, no sleep. Hibernation for 2.
Pretty much, yeah.
Forgot to eat.
And it's 120 pages front and back, so that's like 240.
Mm-hmm.
I was like 100 pages behind. And I had to do that in like 2 or 3 weeks. So
50 pages a day.
Yeah, I was like 50 pages a day. Do not do what I did. It destroyed me.
The school will break you. The school is not for the weak.
Yep. So be prepared. Also, general tip, as an animator, probably not going to get much sleep. So if that's something that you value, probably not the career.
Get a different profession.
Yeah. But to get in deeper into the class, since it's 2D, your first 2D class, your professor should, in theory, be a mostly 2D professor. My professor was a 2D animator. He used 3D, but usually as like a tool to get better perspective on 2D. And for like maybe backgrounds, he genuinely preferred 2D, and thought it was more fun to do. And he worked on projects like Lilo and Stitch, Hotel Transylvania, there are some others I can't think of, but he was in the industry, so he definitely one of the most helpful, if not the most helpful, animation professors I have ever had. James Crossley, shout out. So in his class, he will give you very good tips. I would suggest you try and talk to him a bit more than I did. That's one of my regrets. But he will give you genuinely good tips, both on the sketchbook and on animations in class. You'll start out with like a basic, somewhat basic animation, probably bouncing ball. All of us know it. I mean, if you're going into animation, you probably at least heard of it. That'll be your first kind of sort of project. Then I believe you move on to a tail. You add a tail to the ball. And that kind of teaches you different animation principles. And you'll figure out how to do that. Then the next project, you're taking a bit of a step up. You're doing a flower sack. So this is when you kind of get more of character proportions. Before, it's just a ball. You don't have to worry about anything. Then it's a tail. You only have to worry about the tail, really. With the flour sack, you got to worry about how it moves, with the weight of it, how light it is. So that will be your first introduction to kind of more character-esque animation, and then you will skip on over to full character animation. And you have to animate a scene with your character walking and doing some sort of action, and that's the end of the class. Overall, much more. It was a more enjoyable time for me than Anim 190 because it was something I believed I wanted to do. So if you are truly invested in 2D, this will be your first class that will be the deciding factor on whether you actually want to do this or not. Next class was 2D rigging. Absolute nightmare of a class. Didn't help that I had a bad professor, but not fun at all. It's not the traditional 2D animation that you're probably coming here to do. You are basically working with a puppet, and you will be. It's almost the worst elements of 3D animation and 2D animation, because in the real world, you only need this class if you become a 2D rigger, which I do not advise. Maybe if you are a fan of technical animation and very technical forms of like working on a computer, the process of, oh, why is this not working? Oh, I can flip this around and do this. Then I guess this class will be for you. Most people that take this class though aren't planning on being a 2D rigger. So, I'll just tell y'all flat out, you will not be using this for your future at all. It helps to know how to do basics of rigging, for a career, because then they don't have to ask somebody to do it for you. You're kind of like a jack of all trades. So it might be nice, something you can put on your resume, but you will not be required to do it in most jobs. It'll be a separate department. Somebody will rig it, and then you will be the animator. You'll animate the rig. So keep that in mind for this class. This is the point where I decided animation wasn't for me. I wasn't having any fun. I was pulling late nights. I was locked up in my room. And some people can enjoy that, but I genuinely believed that it was not healthy anymore. And it just wasn't helping. My professor wasn't helpful at all. For our first project, I turned in the wrong file. I asked her if I could do it the correct way, and she told me no. So straight off the bat, I had like a failing grade. Now, if you get a different professor, you will have a completely different experience. In this class, I'll be honest with you, we had 24 students, I believe, close to that. By the end of the quarter, more than half of the class dropped. And that's not purely just because the class was hard. That was purely because of how hard the professor made this class. So definitely, again, rate my professor. He's right. this will make or break your career in animation. If you take this class with the wrong professor, it's done. You're over. You can drop the class and keep on doing animation, but odds are this will destroy your motivation. So I truly recommend take a good professor. If they are not well rated, do not take them. You will not have a good time. So,
And
I
on
believe
that note, we shall see
that's
y'all
all
in
I have
part
to
2.
say about that without
Thanks
naming
for
any names.
watching,
Don't want to get
and we will see you next
I don't
time.
want to get in trouble, and I don't want to get anybody else in trouble. So, I guess from here we can just jump straight into how you go about switching between. This is when I